Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we talk about cloud spend and everything related to FinOps. Today we've got something slightly different than the usual, but as part of our kind of series where we talk about some key reInvent launches and get a technical deep dive into a couple of them, we've got Brian here today. Brian, can you give us a quick intro? Where are you coming from? What do you work
Sure.
on?
Yeah, my name is Brian Filippi. I'm a product manager in EC2. I've been with AWS for coming up on 9 years now. I've spent my whole time in capacity management. So I started out planning the big peak events for, like Prime Day and Cyber Monday for Amazon, and then I've just been in AWS working on capacity ever since.
Awesome. And because this is usually more of a cost-focused show, we always like to ask everybody, have you had a frugal week or have you had a splurgy week this week?
Oh man, we are remodeling our kitchen. So for the next few months, it's going to be splurgy months.
Pretty full on, pretty full
Yep.
on. Awesome. We've got some folks in the house, and it looks like we've got some folks streaming in. Good morning, Class Slayer. Great to see you. So Brian, capacity. I think we usually think of kind of capacity and FinOps as two sides of the same coin. Sometimes you get folks who are tasked with managing both. There's a little bit of cross-pollination, but can you tell us a little bit about what you mean when you say capacity management or like how customers interact with that generally?
Sure. So some of our customers have um, really critical workloads that they need to ensure have capacity at all times. And so we have a product to help our customers do that called Capacity Reservations. We call them on-demand capacity reservations, or you might have heard them as ODCRs, is kind of the acronym for it. We also have things called capacity blocks. Like if you're in the ML space, we can reserve those capacity blocks. And so our customers, they want to make sure that they're using those capacity reservations as effectively and efficiently as possible. And so one of the big pieces of capacity management is just making sure that you are using that capacity to the best of its ability. Because when you're not using it, there's still a cost to that capacity reservation. And so we want to try to help our customers manage that capacity so they don't have waste, so that they are getting as much value from our products and services as they can. And then there's other pieces of capacity management, like what capacity are you using just EC2 instances outside of reservations, or if you're using Spot, how do you manage Spot and make sure that your Spot interruption rate is something that you can monitor and improve by adding different types of flexibility. So anything within EC2, any running hardware or reservations is typically what we say is under the umbrella of capacity management.
Awesome. And for the folks who are joining us who are more on the FinOps side, which I would guess is probably most of the audience, I think one of the common questions that we get about capacity reservations is, okay, so I have a savings plan. Do I need a capacity reservation as well? Or maybe I have an RI. Do I need a capacity reservation as well? The way that I usually think about it is a savings plan is basically like a coupon. It's a pricing mechanism. That is what you use to reserve something and say, I'm going to be using this for a long time, give it to me at a discount. Whereas a capacity reservation is something where you're telling AWS, hey, I need this capacity no matter what. I'm going to pay for it whether or not I use it. And that's why we really care about making sure that these things are well utilized and kind of consumed after we've got those ODCRs spun up and in place. Anything you want to add there, Brian?
Yeah, just a little bit of history. So way back in the day, back in the early days of AWS, we had something called a zonal reserved instance. And that kind of combined the two things. It combined a capacity reservation and that the coupon or the discount. And what we found was the FinOps people or the finance people really cared about the coupon and the discount. and the engineers really cared about the capacity assurance, that making sure that that physical capacity was set aside for them. And it got really hard to manage because there are kind of two people pulling on the same reserved instance. So that's when we kind of split it out. We said, okay, let's just have capacity reservations be its own thing, on-demand capacity reservations, and let's do savings plans as a way to kind of provide that coupon. And that allowed us to offer way more flexibility in providing our customers the ability to upgrade. So now you can just have a savings plan and have the savings plan just cover everything. And then when you want to upgrade to the next latest and greatest instance type, you can just cancel your old capacity reservation and create a new capacity reservation for the instance type.
Awesome. Cool. I guess curiosity question. How often do you see customers just use ODCRs for peak events versus kind of steady state for specific workloads? Does it vary by industry at all?
I mean, it's varies by customer to customer, to be honest. If you're really flexible in the capacity that you can take, then a lot of customers are able to kind of navigate big peak events without capacity reservations. But if you're not super flexible, then capacity reservation we see often for those peak events, because we're dealing with very large enterprise customers, and they need to make sure that the capacity is there. So we work with them to get them capacity reservations for those peak events.
Awesome. Yeah, a little bit of everything. Cool.
Yep.
So I think hopefully that's enough primer on what we mean when we say capacity manager, capacity reservation. Tell me a little bit about what you launched. What are we talking about today?
So we launched something. I'm not very good at naming things. So we launched something called EC2 Capacity Manager.
It's very literal. I think it's
yeah.
great. It's really clear what it does. So I think you're doing great.
Yeah. So we launched this back in October, and this is a free tool that we're offering to all of our customers. That essentially it just helps you aggregate your data into one place. When we're talking about capacity reservations, sometimes it's a little bit different than what you would see in your cost and usage report, because your cost and usage report is kind of your usage across time, where sometimes you want to see kind of like what is your actual footprint of capacity. And so Capacity Manager kind of does both, but it adds that extra footprint data for our customers. But the other thing it does is that, like I said, in the past, it was a little bit hard for our customers to manage all of these different resources across all their different regions, across all their different accounts. And so what Capacity Manager does is it kind of just collects all that data for you and updates it on an hourly basis.
Awesome. So single pane of glass view across the entire organizational footprint. That's
correct.
Great. Cool. Do you want to? I can pull it up if you want to take it.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you're ready, let's go.
Let me just squeeze it in a little bit.
Cool.
So I have two screens, so I apologize in advance. I'm going to be looking over at this screen. So
all good.
Yep. So this is Capacity Manager, and like I said, it's a free tool. You can actually choose to enable it at the account level, or you can enable it at the organization level. And then if you wanted to, or if you're at the organization level and you don't want everyone going to your org account, there is a delegated admin
awesome.
feature that you can do as well. So you can delegate another account to kind of be your capacity management account, so that you don't have everyone going to your big payer account.
Yeah.
So once you enable it, we will start backfilling the data for you. We will backfill up to 14 days of data, and this is hourly data. And then we will continue to add data to your data set up until we get to 90 days of data. So this will always show, once the data set fills up, it'll always show the last 90 days of data. And then when you get in it, you're kind of brought to this dashboard. And in this dashboard, you can choose different things like your date range, whether you want to just look at yesterday or some custom range. You can also look at your time interval. You can look at hourly data or daily data. And it gives you like a nice overview of what's going on with your capacity. So if you're looking at your reservations, what is my utilization of my reservations? Now, 43% is really bad. This is our test account. So this is an account that we're kind of just testing things out, and we're actually throwing lots more spot interruptions. So you'll see numbers that don't look very good, but that's just because we're just trying to get data in here and test things out. But you can see kind of this is across your entire organization, how, like, what's your utilization of your capacity reservations? What's the estimated cost of those unused capacity reservations? And when I say estimated cost, I think this is where there is a little bit of divergence in what FinOps folks think of. We use estimated cost here as a way to kind of just gauge relative size of things. This is just based on the on-demand price of the capacity. It doesn't take into account savings plans or RIs or anything like that. But where it's really helpful is, say I have two reservations. One reservation has 100 instances of like the T4, which is like those burstable, really cheap burstable instances, and I have 100 instances of the ML instance types. Now, if I just see 100 and 100, it might be difficult to figure out which one to go after. But if I see an estimated cost, just the on-demand cost, it just helps you gauge relatively the size of each thing.
Those 45 XLs.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll get you.
So if you want like actual real cost information, like cost and usage report, cost explorer, still kind of the holy grail, I guess you could say. We just give this here, so we try to get the data a lot faster than those tools can report. We do hourly data, and I think we have like a 5-hour delay in that hourly data, so it comes in a lot faster, but at the expense of we can't get all of the cost information because that takes a lot longer to calculate.
Right on. We do have a couple quick questions in the chat. And this one I want to kind of piggyback on. How long does it take the data to populate in Capacity Manager once you enable it, and how do you enable it? One thing that I do want to call out here, and I think it's like if you're a keen viewer looking at the screen, this is within the EC2 console. So if you're used to going through billing management, or you live your entire life in Cost Explorer like I do, this is going to be through a different section of the console. Navigate to the EC2 service, and you can find it there.
So to excuse me. So to answer the question, it takes a couple hours, generally speaking, to enable it. Once we'll try to get you the last hour as soon as we can, but then it takes some time to populate the back or to backfill the data. And then to enable it, it's pretty easy. You just go to your EC2 console. There will be a nice little button down here that says Capacity Manager with a new next to it, and you just click on that, and all you need to do is click Enable.
Awesome. When I did it in my internal account, which has, I think, a whopping $200 a month of spend, I think it took like an hour to get something in there. So your mileage may vary depending on the size of the organization, but definitely turn it on, come back tomorrow, and take a look at what's in there. And then we've got another one. If 40% is bad, what's good? I have some opinions, but Brian, I'm interested in your opinion.
I would say best in class that we typically see across our customers is between like 90 and 95%. If you're at 100%, then you either have really steady state workloads, or you're only covering kind of the baseline, and then you're using on demand to kind of do your spikes. So some customers do that, but typically 90 to 95% is I would say is really good.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is one of the places where we do want to shoot towards 100, but recognize that we're probably never going to reasonably hit that 100%.
Right. Any other questions, or should I keep going?
Nope, keep on going.
Awesome. So here we also kind of show you your usage. So Capacity Manager actually pulls in all of your EC2 usage, whether that EC2 usage was launched by another service or not. Anything that's EC2 that gets launched in your account will show up here. And so this metric actually shows, okay, what percentage of your EC2 usage is covered by a capacity reservation versus not covered by a capacity reservation. And that's another place where we kind of diverge a little bit from how FinOps, I think, thinks about capacity is, if I go down here to my usage metrics, I see reserved usage and unreserved usage. When we're talking about reserved usage here, we're talking about what's in a capacity reservation, not necessarily like what's in an RI or a savings plan. What's in a capacity reservation, and then unreserved is what's not in a capacity reservation. But within this dashboard, we show you more details about the metrics. So you can see your usage metrics, and you can actually change it and look at, do I want to look at number of instance hours or vCPU hours, or even, if I want to look at estimated cost. And you can see how when I have Spot, the vCPUs, how many vCPUs I'm running, but then when I go to estimated cost, you can see how cheap that spot is. But this kind of shows you kind of over the past, like in this case, over the past month, how things are varying, how things are changing, whether or not you have a big drop in reserve capacity. You can kind of track all of those things. And again, we kind of do the same thing for reservations, but in this case, we're looking at just the reservations. And when we talk about utilization, I think in EC2 there's kind of two levels of utilization. It's one is the box on or off, and two is like what percentage of my CPU, like what's my CPU utilization. When I talk about capacity utilization, I'm talking about is the box on or off or not.
Okay.
But here you can you can see the trends, and you can see where you have unused capacity, where that unused capacity lives, and you can actually even click on this button, and it'll take you right there, and you can actually see exactly what reservations and what accounts are driving that unused capacity.
Nice.
And then for the Spot folks in the room, we also show things like runtime before interruptions and top interruptions. And here, so kind of give a little bit of background on how Spot works. Spot's based on our spare capacity, and so we give it at a very deep discount, but with the caveat that you can be interrupted at any time with a 2-minute warning. Essentially, we try to give you longer warnings, but the minimum is 2 minutes. And so a lot of our customers, they monitor their Spot interruptions so that they can go and figure out, okay, where am I getting interrupted the most, so I can add more flexibility to my fleet, kind of expand the pool that I'm drawing from, so that EC2 puts me on deeper pools, so I don't get interrupted as much.
Awesome. Another quick question in the chat before we move on, and this might be keying into what you have coming up next, but does this work for capacity blocks or ML, or is that different?
It does work. So capacity blocks will just show up as just capacity reservations in Capacity Manager, but yeah, this will show your capacity blocks as well.
Awesome. Cool. Single pane of glass for everything EC2, right? Capacity related. Yeah. We love it.
Yeah, and the single pane of glass is great, but I think once you identify potential issue that in your single pane of glass, you want to be able to deep dive.
Yep.
And so that's what these other tabs are for, is for you to be able to deep dive on your usage or your reservations or even your Spot interruptions. So if I go to reservations here, what I can do is you'll actually see kind of an aggregation of all of your reservations across, like I said, your entire organization, every region, every account. And in this case, I have 722 reservations. It's kind of hard for me to kind of reason about that and find where the problems are. So what you can do is you can actually choose different dimensions to kind of break out your data. So if I want to look at the account, in this case, I only have one account. I can also look at, all right, which availability zones are all of these reservations in, or which instance family am, am I seeing the reservations? And now I'm starting to break out my data to see, okay, there's only 66 reservations here. What do the utilization trends look like? Oh, this one's all zero. You can actually even also check things like what's scheduled to be delivered in the future as well. So if you have capacity blocks or you have a future data capacity reservation, you can kind of see what's coming. But this gives me kind of a way to know, okay, this is where I have my problem in 6i. Let me go and dive even deeper there. And I can get statistics about that. I kind of lock those metrics in, or the dimensions in. And then I can even see all of the reservations, all 66 of the reservations, and what they're doing, and then even look at the utilization trends for each of those. And then there's a whole bunch of different metrics at this point that you could turn on and off. Like you can see the max size of the reservation, min size. This is where you can kind of customize to your heart's content. See when it started, see when it's going to end, all of that fun stuff. But again, we like to dive deep at Amazon, so you can even dive deeper into the individual capacity reservation and see, okay, what's going on with this reservation and what's the usage. This one only ran for an hour, so it's only showing up as a little line here, but I can see everything about that reservation, when it started, when it was ended. And so this allows you to really deep dive, get that single pane of glass, find where the problems are, and then go find exactly the problem so you can actually take action on it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the account view is really helpful because if you think about if we go back to the differences between how savings plans are managed, which I think is a little bit more familiar to some of the folks in the audience, versus how ODCRs are managed. If I think about like an organization worth of savings plans, the majority of that commitment is going to be in one account managed centrally. ODCRs, not necessarily. These are an engineering concept. Very often we see engineering teams responsible for making those reservations themselves and maintaining them. If you're stressing about a peak event, I think it's pretty common to forget a checkbox and leave the water running from time to time. So this allows anybody from an administrator perspective or anybody in a linked account who has it enabled for just their account to do that investigation and just get that sanity check that nothing's still enabled, still sitting there when you don't need the instances anymore, basically.
Right. Yep. And kind of the rest of Capacity Manager does the same things, just but for different data sets. So we can do the same thing for our usage. We can break down and see where our usage is happening, and then also do the same thing for spot and see kind of our interruption rates and things like that.
Awesome. With the spot interruption rate, I mean, I know this tool is still on the newer side, but how have you seen customers make decisions based on this data or like use the output here so
Yeah,
far?
so with spot interruptions, there's been a few anecdotes. One, I did hear of a customer who used it as a way to kind of deep dive when their application wasn't working correctly, and then they kind of go, "Did I get interrupted?" And I can now go and see, "Oh yeah, I got interrupted," and they can correlate the failures a little bit easier. Where our mind was when we created this was we wanted to help customers, because tracking interruptions is actually pretty difficult. You have to like dive into your logs and things like that. So what our intention with giving this is to help customers find where they're getting interrupted a lot, and then they can go and look at their configurations within either auto scaling groups or EC2 fleet or Carpenter, whatever scaler that they're using, and add more flexibility. And eventually, we want to help customers figure out, okay, where should you be flexible? Right now, this is just telling you where to go look to add flexibility, but yeah, I think eventually we want to help give those recommendations as well.
Awesome. And I see you have a data exports tab up there at the top. Tell
I
me about
do.
what's in there.
It's pretty simple. If you want to keep the data past, the 90 days that we're going to store it for you for free, you can set up a data export, and this should just be an hourly data dump of everything that you, I guess, of all your data, and then you can keep it as long as you want into your in your S3 bucket. So this just dumps a file every hour into an S3 bucket.
Got it. Okay. So hourly granularity goes into an S3 bucket. Probably familiar delivery structure to folks who are familiar with the Cur as well, but used for history and tracking, probably.
And if you don't want to use the UI, you don't have to as well. We know many of our customers have kind of their own tracking system. So this also comes with APIs as well that function very similarly to like a SQL-based query. You can just kind of go and say, give me these metrics, group it by these dimensions over this time frame to get your data.
Got it. Awesome. So with that, I have talked a lot in my life about how to leverage budgets to detect for unused ODCRs. You guys have the API ability here. Do you guys have any alerting in this now, or is that something that folks could build with the APIs?
They can build that. They can definitely pull the API and build that. I think that's something that we're certainly looking at. But yeah, we don't have any plans right now. So if you want alerting, definitely use the API.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Got another one. Are there any automated actions for Capacity Manager? And does this have any cross functionality like Quick Suite?
I'll just say not yet.
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
If that is something that you guys are interested in, or if you're a customer looking at this and saying, wow, I really want that, please get in touch with us, costoptimization@amazon.com. Shoot us an email. We'll make sure that feedback gets tracked and added to our PFRs. I think I'll say the same thing I always say for some of the newer launches. This is something that we've built based on customer need. If there are more customer needs associated with this space, or if as you're using this tool, there's something that you really want, please let us know. Ultimately, we build tools for customers and we solve customer problems. So let us know what those problems are and help us solve them and shape our roadmap going forward.
Yeah, as we like to say at Amazon, this is day one still with this tool. It just came out. We want to continue to evolve it and grow it to help solve more customer problems.
Awesome. One last one. I know we're coming up to the end of your half here, Brian, but can I purchase capacity reservations directly in this tool?
You can't purchase them. You can manage them. So if the reservation is in the same account that you're using Capacity Manager, and you kind of go down and deep dive, you would be able to modify the reservation directly from this tool.
Awesome. Okay, so from the linked account, like engineer perspective, you can basically use this tool to jump into the resource that you're using and terminate it right there if it's unused. Can you pop open the little EC2 sidebar again? Because I want to show. We do have a capacity reservations section of the sidebar that's directly above Capacity Manager. That's where you would navigate if you wanted to purchase a new one after looking at these.
Yeah, I think we didn't want to give the central team the ability to go and cancel, a linked account's ODCR, at least not yet until we have a little bit more guardrails.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Cool. All right. Well, we are at the half. Is there anything else that you want to let folks know about Capacity Manager before we let you go?
No, I think the the cool thing about Capacity Manager is you can just turn it on and it's free. So just play around with it, see what works, what doesn't. Give us feedback. We're always trying to improve. But yeah, this is something that we want to help. We want to help you be more efficient. So if there's ways we can do that, please let us know.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for stopping by and showing it off, Brian. It's a really exciting launch. I know I'm excited about it. It's been a long time coming, so really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. I'm going to bring Miss Deepa to the stage. We talked a lot about managing capacity reservations. Now it's time to talk about how you can see those capacity reservations in your cost and usage data after you manage them and when they make it into your bill. This is a launch that I am so excited about. Deepa is very excited about it too, but Deepa, I know you've been on before. Can you give us a little quick intro, who you are, what your role is, and let's talk about what you launched today.
Yeah, I'm Deepa Krishnan. I'm the product manager for Cost and Usage Report. And you all heard about capacity reservations. And we introduced something new in CUR 2.0 that would help you understand the utilization and the costs associated with your utilization easily. We launched this before reInvent. So if you're using Curtain Auto and capacity reservation, you're probably getting this data, you know this. But for those that are on the fence, we thought let's just do a deep dive to see what it offers and how you can take advantage of it.
Awesome. So when you say CUR 2.0, so it's CUR 2.0 only. We gotta be on the latest and greatest there. In terms of what you say or what you mean when you say capacity reservations in the CUR, we have those unused box charges that people have alerted on in the past. How is this different? What changed?
So what happened before we launched this was you had a reservation line item that told you how many hours you reserved, and then unused box. Um, so say you reserve for 10 hours and then you have unused box for 5 hours, and then instances were launched. So you couldn't relate which instance was launched and which capacity reservation. Uh, and then charge back to the teams that actually use it. That was a big problem we heard from the customers. So we added three new columns and row-level granularity in CUR 2.0. So you see the reservation line item, which tells you reserve 10 hours, and then unused is 5. And then every instance that was launched into your reservation, you would have a capacity status column as used and the ARN of the capacity reservation where you launch this instance. So if you have different instances, each of them would have one. So you know you used 5 and then you have unused 5. So that used and unused should together give you the reserve number. So we made it easy for you to understand which instances were used and how much it cost. And if an instance was used, if you had multiple reservations, an instance, the first 30 minutes it was used in a capacity reservation, the next 30 minutes in a different one, you will see two different arms in the capacity reservation ARN column. So you would know how that instance was utilized.
Got it. So if we think back to kind of the dashboard view that Brian was showing and kind of go back to the concepts here. If you have an on-demand capacity reservation, you create something that tells AWS, hey, I need 10 instances. I'm going to pay for them whether or not I use them. But yeah, I need you to reserve these for me so that I can scale up to meet demand. Then your engineers hopefully launch those 10 instances and start using them. But the linkage that we were missing before is essentially that capacity reservation and the instances themselves. So this launch ties the two together and gives you granularity about who's using those instances, where those capacity reservations are going, how well they're being used perhaps, and shows you that unused kind of in a block out as well. Is that right, Deepa?
Exactly. You said it way better than I did.
I don't know if that's true, but I'll take the compliment. Oh, got a question in the chat. Will this work for unused ODCRs that are covered by savings plans as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it works exactly how you want it to. It's just a difference in terms of the line item type if you're looking at the cur. I do have some sample cur data that we can take a look at for essentially the ODCR case. Is there anything you want to add before I pull it up? I do want to make sure that we're like not spending a ton of time looking at a spreadsheet, but I think it's important to conceptualize.
Yeah, so let me be specific about the columns we added. And so how you get started. When you create a new cur, there is an additional checkbox that we added, which would say enable capacity reservation columns and granularity. So you enable that, you will get three new columns. There are capacity reservation on, capacity reservation status, capacity reservation type. The type, there are two types of capacity reservations we offer, like Brian mentioned. There's the ODCR on demand capacity reservation and EC2 capacity blocks per ML. So the type would be one of these two values. The status would have one of the three values: reserved, used, and unused. Used and unused, you can tell from the usage type already, but we also add it in a separate column so it's easy for you to filter out. And the used value is populated for instances that are actually launched. So that's the second column. The third column is the capacity reservation on. So now this column is populated for the reserved line item, unused line item, and anytime an instance is launched in the capacity reservation, the on of the capacity reservation is populated there. So the status and the capacity reservation on columns are also in a focus report. So it's part of the focus specification. So we added there as well. So these are the three new columns you want to take advantage of.
Awesome. So it's available in Cur 2.0 and Focus both?
Right. Focus 1.2. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, let me quickly pull up what this data looks like. If you're as familiar with the cur as I am, this should look pretty familiar, hopefully. But what I've done here is I have some sample cost and usage report data that I've transposed so that we can read it a little bit better. So essentially column A, these are all the columns that you would see kind of across the top in the cur if you're looking at it untransposed. And then I've got two lines of kind of sample data that we can look at here. So 20 to 22, these are the three new columns that Deepa mentioned. But let's take a look at what this actually is. So I've got a unused line in column B here, where I have a resource ID that is pointing to my capacity reservation. And you can see I've got that capacity reservation ARN there. It's ODCR, a bunch of ones. And then that will be mirrored in line 20 here with the capacity reservation ARN. So this is the portion of that ODCR that's not being used. If we take a look at this guy, column C instead, now instead of a capacity reservation ARN in that resource ID column, I have an instance ID. So this is one of the instances that has been launched in that capacity reservation. And I still have that capacity reservation ARN down here, so I can link them back together. And I see that this guy is populated as used. It's an ODCR, so I see it as an ODCR here. I still have all my metadata about like what is this instance. If I had any tags, they would be here as well. I can see those line item descriptions. I see the cost associated with them and everything, kind of all of those familiar pieces. But the key here is now I have a way to link this instance ID back to this capacity reservation ARN and see which account this instance is running in, what tags it has, who used it, if it came from a launch template, kind of all of the analytics that you need to actually troubleshoot and figure out what is going on with your resources. And I'll pull it back down. We'll give everybody a spreadsheet break. Deepa, can you talk a little bit about kind of why customers were asking for this, or some of the requests that caused us to build this feature?
Yeah, one of the reasons was like you mentioned here, associating which instance was used in which capacity reservation they couldn't really figure out, right? Yeah, you tell me I reserved 10 and then I did not use 5, but which ones did I use? And, if I had known, I would have used the capacity reservation. So just to manage that. And the other one is also to charge back the account that actually used it, right? So these were the big challenges that were highlighted to us, saying this is really hard when we're not able to associate which instance was used and who used it and charge them according to their usage. This is especially relevant for capacity blocks where it's all upfront, right? And then you pay everything, so you would see $0 for used and unused, and it's not free for accounts that actually used it. They want to be able to charge them back. So that was a big challenge.
Right on. So it's almost kind of like an RI chargeback. Maybe I'm just old, but that's kind of how I frame everything. Is if I'm thinking about an account that's purchasing something centrally, I really need both that like fee line item of where we're getting the charge, but also the tie to where it was actually used, whether that's discounted usage if you're looking at an RI, or a savings plan covered usage if you're looking at a savings plan, or now basically this instance linkage through the ODCR ID and capacity block integration in the CUR as well. Awesome. So this gives customers the ability to understand where these charges are going and to do a little bit more digging about who is actually using these things, if they're using them well, and really trend that fleet in the billing data, not just in the EC2 console from like a view and analyze perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Another plugin for Cutterado. If you're using legacy car and you're using capacity reservation, you're missing out on this feature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really critical if you do have a fleet of them to manage. Awesome. Are there any CUR query templates from AWS that I can use to pull my ODCR specific information from my cost and usage report?
Didn't we talk about it yesterday or the day
Yeah,
before?
we just talked about this.
Yes, we did talk about it. Yes, we should make it available.
Yeah. So to pull back the curtain a little bit and to give everybody a reminder, we do have the CUR query library, which lives in the well-architected labs, that has a selection of a number of kind of commonly used base queries that we recommend that people start with. If you're new to the CUR, if you feel like the CUR is intimidating and you don't know where to start, but you're really trying to get at some of this data, I highly recommend checking it out. It is going to give you basically like the building blocks to making a CUR query that is specific to your company and your organization. Right now, because this feature is so new, I don't think we have anything published that's specific to ODCR ID right now. That is something that Deepa and I are thinking about and working on. I think internally, since this launched in October, I know I've been using it quite a bit to take a look at these capacity reservations for my customer. I'm sure I'm not unique in that, and that's definitely something that we can prioritize. But again, if you are a customer and you're trying this out, or you're taking it for a spin and you're not sure exactly how to get at the data that you want, and you have a recommendation of what you want specifically to pull from that CUR query, reach out to us, costoptimization@amazon.com, give us that feedback. That's likely something that we could turn around pretty quickly and get into kind of the broader CUR query library for your larger use. Awesome. Questions on that, Tifa? Did I miss anything?
I think we were skewing more towards ODCR.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
absolutely. Talk to me about capacity blocks. I'm happy to pull up the sample data as well, but can you give like a quick
yeah.
overview of what a capacity block is and why it's a little bit different than the ODCR case?
So capacity blocks for ML is more recent concept from EC2. The way it works is you pay all upfront and buy your capacity block. This is mostly for ML use cases. Um, and then similar to ODCR, you have the unused line as well, and that's what was happening before. And with these three column additions, we are actually able to say which instances were used there as well. So the cost for the difference between ODCR and capacity blocks is that you have charged for unused blocks when it's ODCR. Over here, it's all fully paid, so it's $0 for instances that are launched into the capacity block, and also for the unused line item because you've already paid everything.
Awesome. Okay, and let me pull up some sample data. Let me know if this is big enough. I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right on. So top here, we've got essentially a customer purchases 10 hours of a capacity block for $100. We've got a 10-hour training job. Let's say we want to use some of those P5s to do some ML training. After that 10 hours, we should be good to go. So we'll release it. The way that we can do this is by reserving a capacity block. It's going to be the most cost-effective way to get that, and we'll pay for that all up front. So now we see that we've got kind of the usage type here, that P5E. We still have a usage amount, unblended cost, and kind of all of those descriptions. But I think this piece down here is the exciting piece that's a little new. Deepa, can you take us through it?
Yeah. So as you can tell, you have the first line item for what your reservation was. In this case, you used all 10 hours. So you see each of the instances. I've used 10 different instances in this case. Uh, yeah, each of
Yeah.
them would say, okay, this instance was used for 1 hour, and so on. So if you add them up, they should be they're equal, right? That means you don't
Okay.
have any unused. And as you can say, see the cost is zero because you already paid for it.
Okay. So the cost is going to live in that essentially fee line that you can find through that usage type of capacity block fee. And then the reservation line that gives us kind of all the metadata about the instances themselves. And then you'll get an instance line for each of the instances. Do I have that right?
Right. Also, you could purchase capacity block way before you start using, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ARN column would be populated like for the first like row four that you have.
Mm-hmm.
The reservations ARN as well as capacity reservation ARN column would be populated with the capacity reservation ARN, just like you saw in ODCR.
Awesome. So we've got this capacity reservation ARN here, and then the capacity reservation ARN here that are matching.
Yeah.
So same as with the ODCRs, this is how you can join all of that together and pull all of the cost and all of the usage associated with that specific capacity reservation, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, cool. So I think the question at hand here is, how do we expect customers to use this data? Obviously, we want to make sure that the reservations that we're making are actually tying to instances that we're launching. With capacity blocks, is there anything like super specific that's different from ODCRs in terms of customer requests that you guys got to get this feature?
Um, because it's all upfront, there is this amortization piece that we are yet to launch. That's coming for sure. So that's the piece that's different between ODCR and capacity block.
Got it. Okay. Oh, question in the chat again. Aside from the Kerr query template, are there any plans to add some of these views into existing Kudos dashboards? So that's the Cloud Intelligence dashboard set in QuickSight.
That's a very good point. We did not think of that, but we partner very closely with the team, so we can definitely partner regarding that.
Yeah, I think as we saw in the first half, I think we already have some really good views for managing this stuff on kind of the EC2 side real time. But in terms of that retroactive cost tracking and maybe more of the FinOps persona, this launch and this addition to the Kerr essentially unblocks our ability to do that, which is excellent. And the last thing that I want to kind of touch on in terms of how I've been using this data personally since it launched, and how I'm snooping around in customer accounts and making sure that things are being used well is I'll pull back up the instance ID here again on this guy. Because we have those instance IDs, that really allows us to join in basically any other data set that we have that is predicated on that resource ID. And if you think back to what Brian said in terms of kind of capacity reservation utilization versus instance utilization, or those like two tiers of how we think about something being used in an EC2 standpoint, we could add in savings plans there as well. Like, are you consuming the savings plan versus what is it covering? This allows us to use tools like Compute Optimizer, Cost Optimization Hub, any CloudWatch monitor that has an instance ID and tells you whether or not that instance is actually being utilized and connected to. All of those are going to have the instance ID. What we can now do because of this linkage is join those data sets together and give you basically like a multi-pane view of saying, okay, this capacity reservation is fully consumed. We're spinning up all the instances associated with it. But those instances are just sitting there and nobody's actually using them. So that likely warrants a little bit more investigation in terms of best practices, whether or not that ODCR is needed, whether or not those instances are needed. And Deepa, I know this comes through CURT 2.0. Within data exports, we also have the ability to export cost optimization hub data. And I think the question about the Kudos dashboards kind of hinted at this a little bit too. But in terms of joining those together, like, is this something that you see customers starting to do? Or when you're thinking about the data exports, like different reporting mix and match, is there any trend or anything interesting that you guys are seeing there yet?
Not, I haven't heard, not yet, like, combining these reports, but that's the point of data exports, where you can have these different exports and try to combine. But I've had to talk to customers that have actually done it. Maybe they have, I don't know. So that is a point of having these many reports and data exports as a platform, so you can join the reports that you need.
Awesome. Yeah, the data exports repository grows ever larger. We love it. We love more checkboxes.
On that too, and yeah, we have
Yeah.
all these fun stuff.
Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to highlight here, or any kind of early feedback or novel customer use cases? Actually, let me pivot. Any feedback you want on this from the audience?
I want to know how many people were influenced by this launch that really made them think of Cardurado. Um, because it's hard to migrate. We all understand it takes a lot of work. But we are hoping as we introduce more value-added features, customers will gravitate towards it organically without us. And a lot of times, I keep getting this question and say, when are you deprecating? Is there a date when you deprecate legacy? We don't, because we want to give the customer the flexibility to move as they see value. So we don't have a date yet on when we will deprecate, but we're hoping that customers realize there is so much value in using Cortadato that they do it organically and plan for it and take advantage of these features. A bunch of launches are planned this year, and obviously all of them would be on Cortadato. Nothing would break if you use legacy, obviously not. We wouldn't want that for the customers. But we are hoping customers are able to set up both legacy Cur and Cur2.0, which you can do today, and then receive and compare the reports and get used to it so you can actually do the migration plan for it. Maybe 2026 is the year.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll put some links in the description below. I know we've written quite a few blogs and a lot of like quick start guides in terms of how to get started with CURT 2.0, what's different between the two experiences and how to conceptualize them. We'll put those in the description. So please check them out and think about whether or not this is something that your organization can take on, because Deep is just launching more and more features. So CURT 2.0 is just getting better and better. And if you do have on-demand capacity reservations, or if you're using capacity blocks, definitely check it out. I think the things that I would say in terms of takeaways from this episode in general: one, go turn on Capacity Manager within your EC2 console if you haven't already. Start looking at that data. It's a completely free service, so it's better to have it on and start working with it, and have it there if you need it, than have to essentially enable it later. So definitely do that. Number two, check out CURT 2.0. Think about how you can use this ODCR data if you do have a capacity fleet in any capacity, shall we say. Is that corny? And how you can join that in with existing data sets to really monitor how those resources are being used, who's using them, and what that fleet footprint looks like, and then make a plan to migrate to CUR 2.0, because the new CUR features and all the latest and greatest and all the improvements that we're going to be seeing are going to be hitting that version of the CUR specifically. Anything I missed?
I think you covered everything. Thank you, Savannah.
Okay. Awesome. Any last questions in the chat? Seems like no. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming by and for coming on again, Deep. It's always lovely to have you here, and we really appreciate all the work that you're doing to launch these new features that we love so very, very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care.